and my sister had to come to my rescue with some keys. But I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited for tonight. How was your day, Andy?
It's been pretty chill, if I'm completely honest with you. I've just sat here all day looking forward to tonight, to be honest with you.
There are some delicious drams that we're going to do.
Delicious drams. So we've got a little bit of an early St. Patrick's Day celebration, as we've got 3 Irish whiskies to try tonight. So we've got something from Redbreast, from Teeling and Powers. And then we've got the Glengoyne Legacy Chapter 3, which I think originally we had Chapter 1 in one of our first boxes. Unless I'm mistaken.
Did we? That was a while ago.
I think we did. And then we're moving on to Singleton, Dufftown. So that is not the order, though. So, Jess, if you would like to tell everybody.
It is not. The actual order of events, just so we're not going to confuse everyone, is we'll be tasting the Teeling first, and I'll be chatting to the wonderful Rob about that. And then Andy will be chatting to, Andy will be chatting to Janice about the Redbreast and the Powers. We can compare the 2 single pot still whiskies, which will be really exciting. And then we're going to have a little chat through Singleton, and then we'll have a little chat through the Glengoyne, and then obviously we'll force everyone to choose a favourite at the end.
Yes, obviously. And how does that sound for a Thursday night? That sounds amazing, I have to say. So welcome, everybody. If you've not been with us before and this is your first live tasting, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please, please, please get involved. I'm saying everything in threes here. Please, please, please get involved with your tasting notes, your questions to our guests. There's no tasting note that's too silly. Please get involved. We love to read them out. There's no question that's too silly. Please do not feel scared to get involved in this wonderful community that we have here at Pour and Sip. Stevie G saying, dream of snow. It's just very wet here in London. We had a little bit of snow yesterday. Just a little bit, right?
It was the tiniest bit, and then it all got rained away, which is, it's better than it lingering for ages and going all grey and gross. So rather it just, had its moment and left. But yeah, today has been a soggy one.
Yeah, it's been pretty grim in London. I hope the weather is, it's actually going to be, it's been grim everywhere, hasn't it? But up north, there's been actual snow, right?
Yeah, my sister's in Newcastle, and but it's really sunny. It's sunny, but it's super cold. And
I don't mind, because that's December weather. That's nice. It's like Christmas weather.
Here you're in raincoat, sweating it out.
It is horrible. Richard Wingrave, the Teeling is looking interesting tonight. Not had a pineapple whiskey before. Well, we look forward to
excited for this one.
Chatting about that one. TACD, the Teeling from a previous box, was one of my all-time favourites. So looking forward to this.
Do you know what I realised that we've had 2 Teelings previous to this. So I would love to know which one they're talking about.
Which ones were they?
We had in our first ever box was the Brabazon, one from the Brabazon series.
Yeah.
And then we also had the red wine cask single grain, I believe.
Okay.
But we can quiz Rob all about these later.
Yes, absolutely. Well, TACD was one of his favourites, was from Teeling, a favourite of his. David Woolcock, evening all, and P. Burrett, evening, chaps. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to all you newcomers for Pour and Sip. Joe F saying it's nice to be back. Not been on for the last 2 tastings. Where have you been, Joe?
Customer of the year, then.
Yeah.
2023, big up.
Yes, big up indeed. You've missed out on so much, to be honest with you. So there's a lot to catch up on for you, Joe. A lot of in-jokes that we've developed now in the last couple of months that you might struggle with having not been here for the last 2 months. Anyway, so I think without further ado, we should probably start our evening. So drams in hand, everybody. And we will start with Teeling and with Robert. Hello, Robert.
Good evening.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I was letting you guys go, doing the old jump in and then just wait, and then there's silence. You're like, oh, no, I should have jumped in. God. No, I'm really well. Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, looking forward to celebrating early St. Paddy's Day with some Irish whiskey.
Absolutely. So I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Jess, and I will see you afterwards. So have fun and see you soon.
See you later, Andy. Hello, hello.
Hi, Jess.
So glad you could join us tonight. Do you know what I realised when I was thinking about Teeling and Pour and Sip today was that obviously, yeah, we had Pour and Sip in the first ever, not Pour and Sip, we had Teeling Brabazon in the first ever box, which means that when I had to sort of chat to people about the whiskies and stuff, you were my first ever booze interview. and it was great. And I felt so professional because I had to get a work phone and everything for it. It was great. So here we come full circle, like 2.5 years later, which is crazy.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm just glad to see that someone still remembers it, and it's a memorable whiskey. So, I mean, win?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, before we get stuck into the whiskey,
Sure.
let's hear a bit about you, because as you know, some eagle-eyed and eagle-eared people may have realized you were not Irish.
Yeah.
How have you ended up here?
Pointed out to me regularly, yeah. So I'm Australian by birth, but begrudgingly adopted Irish. I made the mistake 10 years ago of meeting an Irish girl, so I'm trapped here now. No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely loving it. Moved here, over 15 years ago. Met my partner 10 years ago, and
Wow.
yeah, we went to Australia a few years back. But no, Dublin is certainly home. So yeah, 5 years ago I started working for Teeling, and very, very happy to be representing Teeling and the rebirth of Irish whiskey. And yeah, it's a very exciting time for the category. You know, I don't have only ever been a bartender before this. 20 years in the trade. But yeah, very, very happy to be on this side of the bar now for a change.
Yeah, exactly. You just get to drink the drinks rather than have to make them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a terrible time. I don't recommend it.
So are you based in Ireland now?
Yes, yeah. Calling in from the lovely Wicklow, and yeah, it's not sunny here either, surprisingly.
Maybe we were asking for too much in March, but I really thought it was going to be a good one. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the rebirth of Irish whiskey. I mean, Teeling has had some pretty exciting stuff going on in the last few years, at least. I mean, it's got such a rich history. Can you chat us through it?
Of course, yeah. I mean, so one of the kind of new breed of Irish whiskies, kind of trying to reinvent the category, as it were. You know, being inspired by the past, but very confident to forge a new future in the category, and that, you know, basically takes looking at every aspect of the production or process for making whiskies. You know, look at, for example, Macallan, you know, world recognized whiskey, but a single malt influenced by sherry. For us, it's very much looking at milling, malting, mashing, fermentation, distillation, maturation, and challenging ourselves on every level and see if we can come up with something new and interesting. You know, look behind me. It's just but a fraction of what Teeling do. Pot still whiskies, peated single malts, single grains. As you said, the Brabazon series, a little bit more typical. But yeah, looking at everything and seeing, you know, how we can put our best foot forward in that category or that flavor profile, and really kind of look to elevate Irish whiskey back onto the top shelf again, as it was in the 1800s. So yeah, exciting time, as a lot of consumers are interested in the new, interesting and wonderful. So yeah, really, really exciting to see some very innovative whiskies coming out of the Teeling distillery.
Yeah, I know. I mean, pineapple rum cask, you don't see that every day, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we may as well jump straight into it. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. So
yes, please.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a good place. Oh, sorry. I was going to say a good place to start would be perhaps like with the small batch as well, because this is the small batch whiskey.
You're a step ahead of me. I should give you my job. I literally was going to say, before we even talk about that, we should talk about small batch, because that's this one here. It's our flagship product. It's what most people's introduction to Teeling whiskey is. It's a blended Irish whiskey, you know, a malt and a grain, aged in ex-bourbon, and then finished in Central American rum. So the parallels drawn to the whiskey we're trying today aren't too dissimilar at all. Both are, for all intents and purposes, for 4 years, the same thing. You know, sometimes up to 6 years, like 4 to 6 years, basically the same thing. All we're doing is changing out that rum finish or that marrying cask. So in the case of small batch, it's Central American rum. Think of brands like Flor de Caña, Diplomatico, Bacardi, maybe. For this one specifically, you know, the question is obviously asked, what rum and what flavors is it imparting? So we really did the experimentation and fleshed that out. So for this one, same product, but finished in Plantation's pineapple rum, the Stiggins. So basically, we're the first company to ever receive those from Plantation. We've done quite a few different collaborations with them specifically, very close with that company. They gave us their Stiggins casks. So they made a pineapple rum, finish and aged a part of that in these casks. They sent them back to us, and then we put our pre-rum small batch blend into the pineapple rum casks, and thus created a very fruity, weird whiskey that was very, very successful. Upon its
weird. I don't know if weird would be the word I'd use to describe it, because it works so well. It's almost weird that it isn't weird. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely weird in a positive way, not weird in a negative way. But yeah, no, interesting and remarkably well in cocktails for obvious reasons. It makes a fantastic whiskey sour / daiquiri.
You know what I was going to say? So throughout lockdown, I exclusively drank daiquiris with that pineapple rum. I became obsessed with it, and I was just about to ask you, obviously, what should I use this in?
As we'll find out, it's a nice sipping whiskey, a little bit higher ABV at 49.2. But although it is nice, neat. Last summer, I was having a ball taking it to different events and things like that, seeing what we could come up with, like whiskey and pineapple soda obviously works really well with this particular whiskey. The daiquiri that I mentioned before, and then you've got you're starting to work into your your old-fashioned riffs, things like that, like your spirit forward cocktail. Almost that middle ground between an old-fashioned and a rum old-fashioned. We have with this one.
That's impressive that it sort of segues the way between highballs and like classic short cocktails as well. Like that seems like quite a difficult thing to do for a whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see a little bit more of that kind of, I guess, almost bleeding between the lines of spirit categories as we take, traditional rum cocktails and supplant an Irish whiskey, especially with a rum influence in them. So we're starting to see a bit more of a diversification around what is a whiskey cocktail. I think it'd be fair to say 10 years ago, people wouldn't necessarily be reaching for a whiskey cocktail in summer. Now you've got this realm of different options available to you.
Yeah. And so was this always going to be a core release? Because it seems like the kind of thing that could be like a crazy one-off experiment and then, just work really well and everyone loves it. Or was it always going to be a lockdown?
It is still I guess what you would call a limited release. It's 18,000 bottles, so it went to a few markets, but they can't get this in the US, for example. You know yourself, limited to Europe, excuse me, but 18,000 bottles would disappear in the US. So yeah, I mean, we'd like to see more, but like the first release we did of this one, so this is the second batch. We do everything in these small batches. So the first release was only about 9,000 bottles. So yeah, it's getting there, getting bigger quantities, but we never really got all that many casks from plantation to begin with, because it's not a luck as I guess as skilled as Alex is, he doesn't have a crystal ball, and by that is you can never judge how successful a whiskey is going to be at the earliest possible stages of it. So yeah, we're very, very happy that it saw the success that it did, and hopefully we'll do another. But yeah, it is still pretty limited in terms of where it is in the world.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that. It's going to make me want to snap up a bottle even more. I mean, that being said, I can't believe we haven't had a taste yet. So I mean, I had a sneaky one, but cheers. I would say as well, I feel like people could maybe see the name, like see the label, and think that it would be overwhelmingly influenced by that rum cask, but it's not at all. It's definitely still a whiskey,
Of course, yeah, that's a great point to bring up. I think a lot of people see the words pineapple rum cask and they're immediately thinking juicy, like pineapple juice. That's sweet, that sweetness, and you don't really get that. But I think that kind of goes back to how plantation make this particular rum. Essentially, they take the skins of the pineapples and redistill with the rum, and they vat the juice in a separate. So it's almost like a blend of these two pineapple influences. So yeah, there's a sweetness there, but I think it's certainly balanced very well by that raw kind of green astringent flavor from the skins of the pineapple, balancing it out. So you don't just have an overwhelming, sweetness there, and then you're layering that on top of a blended Irish whiskey, which has a sweetness to it, that vanilla butterscotch toffee, but also that complexity as well. So yeah, it's not overbearingly sweet. It's there, but it's a very well balanced whiskey.
It is like a little slice of summer in this great time we're having. I mean, these tasting notes are amazing as well. I've got to share some with you. So we've got David Wilcock with candied pineapple on the nose, reminds him of pineapple chunks from his youth. And then Real Boinga, like it's pineapple definitely, but kind of what we were just saying, like it's cooked, so it's not like that juicy sweetness, you know, pineapple upside down cake. He's comparing it to Jason Calvert. It's like pineapple lumps soaked in whiskey. That's pretty accurate.
It's a weird one writing tasting notes for something like this, because you definitively get pineapple, but you don't want to lean on it. You don't want pineapple to appear a bunch of times throughout your tasting notes for it. So it's almost like trying to find different adjectives and verbs, trying to find a way to describe it that isn't just tastes like pineapple and pineapple things.
So much more. It's pineapple, but so much more. Yeah, we've got Richard Ringrove with caramelized pineapple. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words today. I'm so excited to read these. Jim Glancy's getting like fruit jelly sweets that you only get at Christmas.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I love a good esoteric tasting note too. Reminds me of that summer I spent in Majorca drinking white wine on the beach.
That sounds like
I can't argue with that one. Someone said that. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, we've got a name for them. Apparently they're Newbury fruits, which I haven't personally heard of. So you're right, that is a very specific one, but Malcolm Tucker knew what he was talking about. And Joe F has picked up this lovely rum spice finished after the herbs fade away.
Oh, yes, there is. Yeah, there's a herbaceousness there that I think is indicative of Teeling. It's much more pronounced in the small batch. You get a lot of cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, pimento, I think.
What's that from? What is the spiciness from?
I attribute it to the malt components that we have, because it just seems to appear, especially in the lighter blends that we have. We moved the malt component to the Dublin distillery a few years back, so it tends to be fairly kind of ubiquitous across those. I think it's much more pronounced in the small batch. It's something that we saw when creating the Irish coffee for the distillery. It was something we wanted to kind of highlight. And then when we started to see it popping up in, say, the Riesling finish we did for Germany, again, very, very similar. You know, again, another flavor you wouldn't expect from a Riesling cask. So we started to attribute to something that wasn't that cask influence, especially the lighter influence classes like your white wines. You know, we did a Chardonnay there recently. I think your deeper, darker, kind of rich things like Amarone or Recioto tended to kind of overpower it. You got a lot more tannic qualities, but I think that spice is there from the distillate.
Do you reckon that pineapple rum is sort of one of the more left field casks that you've used at Teeling, or does it get a bit wackier than that?
It definitely gets wackier than that. We've used up to 150 at this stage, and as you know, but some of you
made it to being bottled.
Yeah. I mean, like probably the most random one we did was Amberana. Like you know, but I'm sure some of the viewers don't. Irish whiskey can use these alternate wood casks that aren't oak, which can't be seen in Scotch. So we did one there a while ago in Amberana casks, a Brazilian hardwood, and the whiskey itself tasted like liquid carrot cake. Really different and interesting. Yeah, Alex and I thought we'd never see it released because it was too different, but we did a blind tasting online, just like one of these, and the response was overwhelming. So I've never been happier to be proved wrong.
I mean, liquid carrot cake is like, I want this now.
Well, you're in luck. There is an element of that in duty free over there. One of the places that particular whiskey ended up was UK duty free. That's where I got my bottle. Was in Stansted Airport.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's probably worth. I need to go on holiday now, basically.
I think we all do. I think we all need to go on.
Yeah. If there was ever any excuse, it was just to buy a bottle of whiskey and duty free.
Exactly.
They're going to see record numbers now. Oh, this is great. Sorry, David Wilcock has said this is better than Hawaiian pizza.
Amazing. Well, funny you mentioned that. I did an event with Plantation, and it was like, oh, we should probably do snacks. I'm like, well, we have to do pineapple pizza, right? Like, challenge the norm, you know, make people second guess it. And we did, but we didn't just do pineapple pizza. We did one pineapple pizza where the pineapple was soaked in whiskey, and one pineapple pizza where the pineapple was soaked in rum. They went down a treat.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, that sounds like so much fun. Do you know, I was actually going to ask you as well just now how I feel like thing with such like a distinctive flavor, you know, like it's pineapple, it must pair well with food. But here we go. We've already covered that. But I feel like maybe, I mean, you can never have too much pineapple, but it would go quite well with savory things. Like, I mean, whiskey and cheese is, you know, nothing revolutionary, but this seems like it would pair quite well.
Yeah, for the launch, we did a food pairing here in Dublin, and one of the dishes was a prawn. It had like a slight kind of satay peanut sauce to it, but a light, not a rich or kind of full-bodied, I guess. But yeah, really worked really well. Yeah,
it's bringing out that rum element even more, because that strikes me as something you'd have with rum.
Yeah, it sticks in my mind, not just because it was real tasty, but I had to make sure everyone coming didn't have a peanut allergy. Like, this dish is fantastic.
Or a shellfish allergy.
Oh yeah.
That's like a double whammy.
I spend the whole day. Is anyone allergic to peanuts? Peanuts. That's the only thing you have to worry about.
I mean, clearly it wasn't the problem. It's too late now. Oh god, that's great. I mean, can we get any little hints as to what we can expect from Teeling in the future?
Yeah, sure. So wow. I'll talk about something related to this. So yeah, the question is always, you know, what rum cask is small batch aged in? So we have a ton of those now. You know, look at the rum category. There are so many different rums out there, and all people like me in the rum industry talking about the differences in rum and how great they all are. And each of those casks have an impact on Irish whiskey. So it's fleshing that out and discovering. So we have a few different rum agricole, Jamaican high ester, Bacardi, the plantation guys really well. But even within that, even with plantation, you know, Pierre Ferrand to, you know, Alexander Gabriel, who, you know, makes Citadel gin and plantation and Pierre Ferrand cognac. He has gifted us a ton of different casks, and him and Alex Chasko, our master distiller, really geek out with one another and push each other's boundaries. So we got some cool casks from them, managed to get our hands on a few bits and pieces. But even just fleshing out different wines, you know, there's so many different wines out there that we talk about, like Sauterne, Recioto, Amarone, you know, the different Rieslings, Rosé, you know, you can have
quite a few of them.
So, I mean, someone asked me there recently, you know, is the finishing thing a fad, and are we reaching the end of it? I think we've only really just scratched the surface of it as we start to talk about the impact of each of them. So now we've got to this point where we've got all these finishings, so we can start to treat them like seasoning in food and peppering them in accordance of how much impact it has on flavor. And we start to talk about reverse finishing and blending and backing. So
I love the comparison of seasoning.
Yeah.
So that's just a little something extra at the end, rather than, like, you know, the whole thing. It's not the whole meal, it's the enhancer.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, the best example I can think of that was the gin cast we did. We did a Finnish rye gin finish, and it tasted like gin. 2 weeks in, it just tasted like gin. We're like, oh, we've ruined this whiskey. So we kind of pushed it aside and forgot about it. 6 months later, that whiskey flavor started to come back through the wood, and the gin started to dissipate. So we learned that if you want that gin input, it's just going to take a little bit, and then, you know, pull it away, or, you know, maybe reverse finish, put it in gin and then put in something else, and let that then dissipate the gin flavor.
That is so interesting. Yeah. Never give up on the whiskey.
The only problem with all these, you know, learnings and lessons, it takes years to discover, but that is the road there to the whiskey industry. There are things that we're talking about today that will outlive us all, and someone else will get to take it through to fruition.
Passing on the baton.
Exactly.
I could talk to you about this all day, but we're somehow already out of time. We've barely scratched the surface. Onto the pot stills, but I mean, I'm gonna.
I'll hang around. I'll have a whiskey with you later.
Yes, if you can hang around to the end, we would love to see you again. Chat all things whiskey. And yeah, that was delicious. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I mean, Andy will magically appear again now.
Here I am. That was lovely stuff. Really enjoyed that.
I'm panicking now. I know that it's limited. honestly.
Yes, and you and Sipper should start panicking as well.
Mhm.
And we have it in our store. I don't know what the discount is on this one, but remember, you will get
Yeah.
a discount of some
People are
sort.
going to Stansted. No, wait, that's the wrong one. But you know what I mean.
Yes, that as well. But thank you so much, Robert, for coming and talking to us about it. That was wonderful to hear from you, and a lovely dram. So we'll see you in a little while.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. What a start to our Irish extravaganza.
I know, I got carried away. There's so much to talk about with casks and teeling and whiskey.
Whiskey. Yes, absolutely. But with that being said, I'm going to invite our next guest, Janice from Irish Distillers, to talk us through Redbreast and Powers. Hello, Janice. How are you?
Hello. How are you
We're
doing,
all good.
folks?
We've had a great start to our
That's
evening with that
yeah,
wonderful
can't
dram.
I know. I've been listening in the background here. Rob is always tough shoes to follow. Such an amazing storyteller. And
You've got double the
delicious
airtime,
whiskey
so.
at the end of the day. I got double the airtime. Oh, no pressure at all then.
All right. Well, we'll see you in a bit, Jess.
Yes. See you later.
Okay. Take care. How's it going?
Oh, good. All is well. We're about to hit we're in the marathon month that is March for anyone working with any form of Irish product. But
Yes, I
St.
can
Patrick's Day
imagine.
always brings a lot of fun as well. So anyone who's London based, I'm hosting quite a few events if anyone wants to follow me along for the journey.
Okay. Well, maybe we can let our subscribers know which events those are at some point. But firstly, just talk to us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the industry and how you found yourself in your current role.
Well, I've been in hospital. This year marks my 15th year in hospitality, which is easy math to me because I also turned 30. So started at 15. First job was oyster farming, which was a very, very weird one. Yeah. But God, found like an very famous oyster restaurant in my hometown in Galway, Ireland, was my first waitressing job, and fell in love with the industry and went into 5-star hotels, Michelin star restaurants. And I moved over to Scotland to work in a restaurant. And bit of a confession to make, as an Irish woman, I got into Scottish whiskey before I got into Irish whiskey. Because day one of the job, I was told that I was going to have to be handing out a 250 strong Scotch whiskey list to the customers that I had to know something about.
Okay.
Realized how bad it was for me to know my own country's delicious product. So I moved back home to Ireland and I worked in the Jameson Bow Street distillery for 2 years. So started off as tour guiding, and then they promoted me to teach this 90-minute in-depth whiskey production class. That will not be what we're doing today. The other end of it. But I got sent over to New York as well as an Irish whiskey ambassador there right before COVID hit. So I was working with not whiskies not from the Irish distillers portfolio, and then I got the very good opportunity to come and represent the full UK with all of the beautiful Midleton products that are there. So the UK Irish Whiskey Ambassador. So I cover the wonderful world that is Jameson whiskey, but also our beautiful Redbreast, our beautiful Powers, the Method and Madness series, the Midleton Very Rare series, which, 2 weeks ago was a very big day for us with the 2023 release. So yeah, a good 46 whiskies in my permanent collection that I get to talk about on a regular basis. So I'm a very privileged human.
And that's quite the journey from oyster farming. So
exactly, yeah.
Well done. So what I think would be interesting is actually first talking about Irish whiskey as a category. So obviously it's going through a serious boom at the moment. It's all very exciting, but it wasn't always like that historically. It's gone through some serious periods of downturns and declines. Can you talk us through that a little bit?
So when you're going to, I'll cut to like what we call the golden era of Irish whiskey, which was the late 1800s. So like 1880, let's say that is what we refer to as the golden era. The Jameson Bow Street distillery at that point was producing 1 million gallons of whiskey per year, which is about 6.5 million bottles. To put that into perspective, your standard Scottish whiskey distillery was probably producing about 30,000 gallons, as opposed to the Bow Street distillery's 1 million. Okay. Like when John Jameson came over from Alloa in Scotland, yes, he was a Scottish man, as the Scottish people tend to point out to me on a regular basis. When he came over in 1780, there were over 100 operating distilleries in Dublin city centre alone at that point, like a city ran by distilleries. That depleted through the years to kind of create more like powerhouse distilleries. But like, what the hell happened? Like when I go into whiskey tastings and asking people where their favorite whiskey is coming from, Most people are picking a Scottish whiskey, most people are picking a bourbon, but when you look at it, Irish whiskey did rule the world at one point. But you have to cut to the early 1900s, where both of the wars happened, restrictive trade tariffs in Britain happened. The big one, though, was Prohibition in the United States happened, nearly killing us, because American bootleggers were labeling their poorly distilled moonshine as Irish whiskey so they could charge a higher price for it. So even when Prohibition finished, Irish whiskey got a really bad name for itself. So cut to 1966, a big year. We went from over... Great year. Well, not so much for Irish whiskey, but a very big decision was made. So we went from over 100 operating distilleries, like I said, to just 4 in the entire country. 3 out of those 4 distilleries decided to join up and make one big, massive Irish distillers group and move all production to one location. And that one location is Midleton in County Cork, which was where every drop of Jameson whiskey is made, all of our Redbreast family, all our powers is made to this day. When I started working with Irish whiskey 6 years ago, there were 8 working distilleries. Now there are over 40. So that's the level of growth we're talking about here. We are definitely in an Irish whiskey revolution right now. And yeah, now's the time to get into it, guys. You know, in another 5 to 10 years is going to be completely unrecognizable.
Absolutely. That's a question I've got for you at the end, where we'll talk about the future of Irish whiskey. But like, obviously mentioning that a lot of people here, we obviously taste a lot from Scotland. Talk to us just about the main differences and characteristics between an Irish whiskey classically and a Scottish whiskey in a single malt.
Perfect. Well, one of the more stereotypical differences, which is not correct, is that all Irish whiskies triple distilled, all Scottish whiskey double distilled. That is not the case by any means. There are some triple distilled Scotch whiskies, there are some double distilled Irish whiskies. So when we're looking at our whiskies from Midleton, we are triple distilling our whiskey. This is what gives the stereotypical, very hated in the whiskey world at the best of times, smoothness to our whiskey as well. Another classic difference for us specifically, not saying all Irish whiskies, because Rob obviously has some beautiful single malts going on as well. There's some beautiful double distilled Irish single malts out there. But we are a triple distilled single pot still Irish whiskey. Now, what is single pot still, I hear you ask? The only difference between single pot still and single malt is the difference of one ingredient. And that one ingredient is unmalted barley. Now, unmalted barley is barley straight from the field. We've done absolutely nothing to it. It was a tax evasion from the British back in the day as a cheeky Irish move of cutting down on cost. And what we found is that unmalted barley, what that kind of brings to the palate, not just cutting down on cost back in the day, but adds in this beautiful spice and what we call mouth coating texture, the mouth feel, another hated word in the whiskey industry. But you'll see what I mean when we go through these two. And I always tell people to really, really focus on how it's traveling around the mouth and how it's coating it. So unmalted barley as well as malted barley. When you're looking at our whiskies from the Midleton distillery, we are looking at a 60-40 ratio. So 60% unmalted barley to 40% malted barley. So 60-40 in favor of unmalted barley.
And what kind of flavour can we expect that unmalted barley to give the whiskey?
So it's all about that beautiful spice and viscosity, that mouth coating texture, that bit of spice that unmalted barley will bring, complementing the beautiful cereal biscuit notes that your malted barley will bring to the table too.
Well, I'm salivating now. So
well, that's my job done. No whiskey tasting.
Exactly. And I'm ready. But we'll start with Redbreast because I think that's what we had discussed with Jake before. I could be wrong, but we're starting with Redbreast now. And talk to us about. I mean, Redbreast, I think, is an extremely loved whiskey amongst whiskey lovers. Why is that? What is so special about Redbreast?
So, well, for me personally, and I will absolutely throw my hands up, this is the Irish whiskey that got me into Irish whiskey when I was in, my original Scottish single malt whiskey drinking days. Someone handed me a glass of Redbreast 12 at a wedding and I was hooked ever since. I think it's everything that people want as their first kind of sipper, something a little bit more robust, something that is just going to sit with you for so long. Every single one of our Redbreast whiskeys, the finish does not disappear. And I've been working on and off for these brands for 6 years now. Redbreast 12 never gets old for me. absolutely never gets old.
It's one of those absolute staples of people's home bars if they're going for Irish whiskey. It's just like you would recommend it every time, the Redbreast 12. I want to buy an Irish whiskey, Redbreast 12.
That's the one I convince your Scotch single malt whiskey drinkers into an Irish single pot still. Redbreast 12 is the one that grabs people in. But of course, we have some beautiful other expressions of it as well, and some beautiful other single pot still whiskies, like the likes of our spot whiskies as well, just done to a very different style, more orchard fruit forward. But Redbreast gives you all of that. It's synonymous with its sherry cask undertone. So you get your, like, especially with Redbreast 12, it's your mince pie in your glass, it's your Christmas cake in a glass, your dried fruits, your nuts, your figs, your Christmassy notes, and just that beautiful buttery viscosity from the classic single pot still whiskey that we're using for it. But the one that we're going to be trying today is not, well, I hope quite a lot of you have had Redbreast 12 at least once before in your life, but Redbreast Lustau, the one that we are going to be drinking today. This is, so you will notice on the bottle, which I know you will not have, you have your lovely little sample bottles.
My sad little dram, whilst you've got your lovely looking bottle.
I've got my lovely full bottle. This is the perks of the job when you have your full bottles from working with the company. This is the only reason I did it.
A full bottle as well from our Pour and Sip store.
But folks, there is no age statement on this whiskey at all, okay? So the idea behind Redbreast Lustau. So Redbreast 12 is known for, like, its first fill casks. So your first fill bourbon, your first fill sherry, getting the most out of the cask. There's actually way more bourbon versus sherry in Redbreast 12, but because it's first fill sherry cask, that's really kind of what's taking over on the flavor. So you get the beauty of what the casks will bring. So when you go into like refill casks, so second fill casks, and we can use our barrels and casks up to 3 times, you're getting more from the liquid itself. So Lustau is to kind of showcase to you what happens when you take a slightly younger whiskey, and I'm only talking slightly. It's like on average 9 to 11 years old, this whiskey. Slightly younger whiskey put into a fresher, newer wine cask for that finishing, nearly putting that liquid into a wet cask level. So when you're talking about sherry casks, and in every tasting and every training I will ask the room, is anyone a sherry fan? And it's most of the time just tumbleweed, just
really?
Room. Oh my God, like I love sherry. Sherry is a great drink. The more people we can get drinking sherry, the easier it's going to be to get those casks for us.
We'll get them drinking whiskey matured in sherry casks first.
Exactly, yeah. So this is my battle plan. But normally when you're dealing with the very difficult sherry casks to get, you're just getting them from cooperages, the barrel makers. We are the very privileged few to be able to have Lustau written on the Redbreast Lustau bottle, because we are specifically getting this Lustau Oloroso sherry cask finishing for an extra year on that slightly younger whiskey. Bodega's Lustau is one of the most iconic sherry winemakers in existence, so we are very, very lucky to have that name written on our bottle. This is what we call it. So we had this, Lustau was part 1 of what we call the Iberian series. Part 2 was the Redbreast PX cask finish, which was absolutely to die for. Unfortunately, a very, very difficult one to get now. And like it's that beautiful brown sugar note that we haven't had in any of our other Redbreast before. But Lustau was part 1. There will be a part 3 at some point soon, but I am not allowed to divulge what that cask will be. So with Lustau,
you can if you
like. soon, I promise. Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to read out a few tasting notes about this before I get into mine, because I have been sipping along to this one
Beautiful
in the background, and it is wonderful. I mean, the first thing that hit me on the nose was just the really strong kind of orange and ginger note. For me, the kind of ginger loaf, the kind of Terry's chocolate orange thing, and you know, it's wonderfully spicy. Those kind of classic baking spice notes you get, obviously, from the sherry cask. Those lovely cinnamon notes, the kind of cloves as well. It's really wonderful. TACD saying, been on the Midleton tour, had a grand time.
Grand time. That's a very good Irish word right there.
Oh, yeah. Richard Wingrove getting some nice spiced fruits on the nose. Green tea is green, yes. And the weather Redbreast has really has that autumn vibe, spicy, fruity, like a slice of Dundee cake. Do you know what Dundee cake is?
Someone fill me in. I am.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I don't either. So green tea is green. If you could let me know what Dundee cake is and if I'm missing out, because if it tastes like this taste, then I am going to be missing out. Roaring fire going whilst you watch the snowfall and don't care at all. Green tea is green, and on the tongue it's even also so full of flavour at the start. Nice long warming finish too. Jim Glancy, proper dangerous winter whiskey. Malcolm Tucky, yes, the palate is lovely and complex. Stevie G, as Janice said, a long finish, getting a little bit of licorice with the fruit. Joe F, this is a quality winter whiskey along the same lines as a Glenfarclas 25. Okay, so there you go. And TACD saying just a lovely dram for when it's snowy outside. So what about what are you getting from?
So for me, like on the nose of Redbreast Lustau, I think it smells quite wine-like. I think you do actually get that like wine cask like influence on it 100%. For me, the palate, so rather than like focusing on like the specific tasting notes, which I'll go into, I always try to get people to focus on how it feels, where it's sitting. You know, is it the side of your cheeks? Is it hitting your chest real hard? For me, it's quite zesty and it sticks right at the front of the palate. So let me have another sip of this. There's this beautiful jammy compote note to it as well, like this lovely peppery jammy, which is actually with the next whiskey we're going to be trying. There are some similarities with John's Lane and Lustau and the kind of the jamminess, which I hope you're going to kind of see that like combo with it. I know the word jamminess is not a real word, but you hopefully know what I mean.
a comparison with tasting. No, I completely agree. Lovely kind of stewed kind of apple note as well there in the palate, which is wonderful, and the finish is really lovely and spicy as well. Someone a
lovely anise and licorice note, right? Yes. Like at the very end. Little bit of marzipan going through on this one as well, I find. But
absolutely, I mean, it's everything as well you'd want from a nice sherry finish as well. The Oloroso is so potent. Like, it's not a sherry bomb, obviously, but you know, it's lovely and balanced, and it's you know, wonderful stuff. A lot of people saying winter whiskey on here as well, but I want to know about the Iberian kind of note, because I would love to know what lovely cured Spanish meats would go with this one. I have to say.
Absolutely, and I've done that more than once. But whiskey and food pairings, absolutely, with your cured meats.
Yeah, I mean, with this one, I'm getting a few ideas. What have you tried with this? That was one.
What have I tried? Oh, quince and manchego, absolutely. When you have your think of your jammy notes with the like quince, like little bit of sharpness going on, and your lovely soft cheese. But yeah, anything cured meat, any single one of them. A little bit of
absolutely amazing. Real Boinga saying apples and oranges with cinnamon and ginger on the nose. Tastes like apples and raisins with cinnamon and ginger and vanilla cream on top. You're left with more apple custard pie. Simon, first sip was plum and velvet, then it just opens up so much more with that lovely warming peppery finish. It is a really warming dram as well. That is, I can see where people are coming from with kind of saying that lovely sit by the fire kind of dram. The Castle lad again saying loving the spice and the warmth of this. It's a really, really wonderful dram, I have to say. But the Redbreast character, I don't know about you, isn't lost at all in this with that kind of the first fill kind of sherry cask. Going on, so it really stays strong. I am aware of time, and we do actually have another dram to try. We're doing this has never happened on Pour and Sip before, I don't think. You're going to be our first double guest, taking us through two different drams. And Real Boinga saying definitely quince and manchego with this. That does sound wonderful. I might save a bit before I get some manchego from the shop. Not that I have anywhere very close to me that would just sell manchego by the same Tesco Express near me. I might have to go somewhere further. There has been a question which I should ask you, even it's probably a good time to ask it. It's more about Irish whiskey in general, but Jim Glancy is asking, does anyone know why the E is in Irish whiskey?
So with the Gradstad, so one of the first ones that I was told that is incorrect is that when there's the spelling of the E in the country's name, that is when you take on the E. That is not the correct case. In fact, all whiskey was spelled without the E originally, and it was actually specifically Dublin whiskey that took on the E to differentiate itself from the rest of the world, because Dublin whiskey was ruling the world whiskey-wise. And then it kind of plays into prohibition after that. So when American bootleggers were labeling the moonshine as Irish whiskey, they kept on the E from then on as well. That is what I have been told by one of my more respected whiskey mentors. So if I'm incorrect in that, you can blame that mentor.
And they will be unnamed for now, just in case.
Absolutely, just in case. But yes, but yeah, all whiskey spelled without the originally Dublin whiskey took it on.
Okay, well there you go. So we'll talk about the portfolio you're working on. And obviously, it's not just Redbreast. We have many different brands in there, but we're moving to Powers next, which I've not tried much of, to be honest, if I'm completely honest with you. So this is quite exciting. So talk to us a bit about Powers.
Fantastic. Well, a little fun fact about Powers. So Powers Gold Label as a blended Irish whiskey was actually the biggest selling blended Irish whiskey within Ireland right up until 2014. Jameson only took over then. So what I associate with, like, you know, the Christmas presents that my father was given by work colleagues and everything, it was always bottles of Hennessy, bottles of Powers Gold Label. So those two bottles were always like on the spirits shelf in our house. So that's what most Irish people will associate with, like, the classic blended Irish as Powers Gold Label. And Powers was the biggest. When we're talking about, you know, Dublin whiskey ruling the world, Irish whiskey ruling the world, Powers wasn't just the biggest selling Irish whiskey in the world, it was the biggest selling whiskey in the world, full stop, when we're talking about the golden era. That distillery, so the distillery started in 1791. If anyone goes to Dublin now, you can actually, you can go see the original stills in an art school in the city centre of Dublin, surrounded by hipsters that just sitting on the stills.
They ruin everything, hipsters.
I know, right? God damn them. I have kind of one myself, in fairness. I just managed to make a whiskey career out of it. I just have the very dark room glasses to the corner here to hide my hipster self. But you can walk around the grounds of the original distillery in that art college in Dublin. And see, if you look here, this diamond P. So this was one of the first original registered trademarks in Ireland. And when you're in the grounds of that distillery, even walking around that area of Dublin, which is the Liberties area of Dublin, it's like a game to spot the diamond P. It's like you'll see it in gutters, you'll see it like mounted onto walls. Like, great. Powers was an incredibly, no pun intended, powerful whiskey in Ireland. If anyone is familiar with the scripture, so with Alfred Bernard, he was a very, very big, like, food and drink writer back in the late 1800s, and what was the golden era, traveled to all of the distilleries in the British Isles, and he named Powers as the most incredible, one of the most modern, one of the most efficient, and this incredible piece of how this distillery was running back in the late 1800s. So what we have with John's Lane is our single pot still version. So Powers Gold Label being our blend. We did also have the Three Swallows release. There was a signature release a while ago, unfortunately discontinued now. But the John's Lane is quite reflective of what we would have been doing back then. So these beautiful traditional pot still Irish whiskey. So from that one mash bill of the 60-40 ratio of malted to unmalted barley, we can create very, very different styles of pot still whiskey. So we're making 3 different styles. We're creating light pot Midleton, LPM, mod pot, trad pot. By combining those 3, we're making very, very different whiskies. Powers is more on the light pot Midleton, the LPM, allowing the distillate to shine through a little bit more in the cuts that you're making. Hopefully that makes sense to you folks. Absolutely. But what Powers is kind of synonymous with that distillate is like beautiful honey notes. Like even when you're trying the new make spirit of that, you get this honey and you get this lovely black pepper note going through it as well. So John's Lane really showcases that up, but ups it up to a degree with that 12-year age statement that's written on the bottle and in its single pot still form. So we're ramping up those beautiful honey notes into something that's a little bit deeper, richer, a little bit more like rancio going on, a little bit like walking through a forest going on. That's going to be my most myself tasting note for the day of like, it's like walking through a forest. But hopefully you're all for the dram at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone said the Cask glass saying is loving the design of the Powers bottle. It's very medicinal.
Yes, indeed.
It is a great. I mean, it's very kind of distinctive looking bottle, I have to say, and label. So
So it's actually supposed to reflect what a pot still looks like. If you look like here at the top and everything, it is a beautiful redesign, but is very much a love or a hate thing with an awful lot of people as well. Some people are very tied to how it looked before.
Rebrands.
The classic Powers drinkers, you don't mess with their product a little bit, but we needed to bring it into the next generation.
I can't think of many whiskey rebrands that have been universally loved without, kind of, maybe I always say that Arran was maybe one of the very select few that was kind of very much critically acclaimed, but everyone else gets very, very tied to the original bottle and gets very upset if it changes.
Absolutely.
But we do have to change. But David Woolcock, nose reminds me of that old polish with citrus scents. Okay,
absolutely.
Great tasting notes. For me, there's a lovely butterscotch note that's there, chocolatey butterscotch kind of notes, which is really pleasant. What about yourself?
For me, I get there's something leathery, there's something tobacco-like about it as well. It is that forest flora style level for me as well, but keeping on with that honey. Powers will always have that beautiful honey note, but going back to, remember my lovely word of jamminess earlier? That isn't a word, but you hopefully know what I mean by it. So on the palate especially, this is where it kind of turns into it for me. So for me, it's a little bit marmalade-like, and apricot jam is my favorite.
Apricot jam, okay.
It's my favorite tasting note for this whiskey. Once again, it's about mouthfeel. It's spicier, this one as well, though. You really, really feel this going down, but still in its stereotypical smoothness with our Irish whiskies. But yeah, you did it packs a punch, absolutely does. But for me, it's the nose that is just absolutely stunning on this whiskey as well.
I really like this one. I have to say, it's a wonderful kind of sponginess, like a sponge cake kind of note as well. There's a hint of lemon towards the end as well. It's pretty creamy, that kind of porridgey note as well. That is really wonderful. I'm really enjoying this one, I have to say. This one is going to be savoured. Malcolm Tucker, nose, new leather. That's what you were saying, Janice, that kind of leathery note that you get on the nose. Oranges and lemons and wheat. So yeah, some of those notes again are kind of reflecting what you were saying about Powers, and that's, it's an absolutely wonderful dram. I'm very aware of time, being that you have to leave in 7 minutes precisely.
My God, yes, apologies, folks.
I'm going to ask Rob the same question as he's still around, but I wanted to kind of ask you, we were saying that a lot of more kinds of styles are coming into Irish whiskey, and there will obviously, and it's going through a real period of boom, and there'll be questions about the identity in general of Irish whiskey. Does Irish whiskey really need to stay true to itself, or is it time to explore greater diversity or keep a clear and distinctive character within it? What do you think?
So for us, especially, the Irish Whiskey Technical File is a very recent thing into Irish whiskey history of labeling what a single pot still Irish whiskey is. So minimum 30% malted barley, minimum 30% unmalted barley, no more than 5% of a grain outside of barley. So that's the only really kind of strict limitation of what we have to call single pot still Irish whiskey. But as Rob mentioned earlier, we don't have in our regulations the tie down of oak like Scottish whiskey has, or Virgin American oak for bourbon. We can use whatever casks we want. So for example, in my family, there's the Method of Madness series, which we've played around with different grain types. Our most recent release was a oats and malt mixture, so 60% oats, 40% malt.
Things I've ever tried was from Method of Madness. I went to an event, and I think it was a mulberry kind of cask. It was honestly one of the
mulberry, acacia wood, cherry wood, chestnut is on our permanent collection of the single pot still. So that's a bit of fun that we can play around with a little bit there. It just, I totally and utterly support that. The Irish Whiskey Technical File for single pot still, it is something that I think needed to happen to make something this is ours, this is this style of Irish whiskey. But limiting yourself can also, it's a double-edged sword, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. Just a few more notes coming in about Powers. Daniel Markland, Green tea is great. Oh, God, there's more. Pea Barrett, I'm getting banana very strongly with the butterscotch. Very refreshing.
Banana.
Green
Okay.
tea is green. Lovely afterburn with the powers. Daniel Markland. Wow, the taste was a nice surprise. Not expected that from the nose. Richard Wingrove getting some candied orange peel, I think. Real Boinga orange, ginger and pepper on the nose, and taste of ginger comfy oranges with black pepper, and one is left with spicy orange chutney. Real Boinga, that's a great name. Green tea is green is also agreeing about the marked difference between the nose and the palate, and Jim Glancy, all three are great, and compared to some of the ludicrous prices coming from some bits of Scotland, they seem fantastic value to me.
Brilliant.
So, well, Janice,
Good
it's
to hear.
absolutely wonderful talking to you,
Thank you so
and I hope
much.
you enjoy your next event that you're heading up to.
All go this time of year, but thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you on here again. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Lovely stuff. Hello, Jess. How's it going?
Oh, what a joy. I just love hearing people talk about whiskey. Surprise, surprise.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the place to be if you do love hearing people talk about whiskey.
Yeah, just sort of chilling for, half an hour or whatever. Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah, I mean, thanks to Janice. I get to say goodbye, but
yeah.
what an evening.
It was, and again, some more notes coming in. Lovely oil mouthfeel, lovely, light, spongy, well tart made with a thick cut orange marmalade, peppery finish. I think orange has been the consistent tasting note between the two that I was talking to Janice with about the Powers and the Redbreast. Interesting. That tasting note come up quite a lot. However, we are looking at the time, and we do actually have 2 drams that have nothing to do with St. Patrick's Day. We are heading back to Scotland. Again, as always, I say, like, 5 drams can be a lot to try in a night. So please, if you want to watch this and listen in your own time and drink these at another time and just savor the ones you've been drinking now, please do not feel that you need to drink these right now whilst me and Jess briefly discuss the Singleton and the Glengoyne. So yes.
Well, Singleton time.
Singleton time.
This is a bit of a funny one because the Singleton range actually encompasses 3 different Scotch malts. You also have the Singleton of Glendullan and the Singleton of Glenord. So though they all are Singletons, they're all obviously different whiskies from different distilleries. And yeah, the range was basically made to spotlight whiskies, single malts that were going into blends. Dufftown is in Johnny Walker and a lot of famous blends. And it's funny because today Dufftown is known for its like really fruity, grassy, sweet whiskies. But back in the day, it was actually, many years ago, it was actually known. That's why it's such a good blending component. It was because it was known for its nuttier, like oilier flavors. So it's quite funny that it's such a far cry from the historic flavors of what it was. But it's a delicious whiskey now. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to. If anyone is tasting it, let us hear your thoughts, or whenever you do taste it, please get in touch. But
absolutely, I've not tried this one before, I have to say, but I'm going to say for this one myself as well.
Yeah, I can tell you that I did a very scientific and a very academic piece of work, and it goes deliciously with macarons.
Oh, well, there you go. Any particular flavour of macaron?
Do you know what? I tried them all. I got a little like trio pack, and the worst were not the worst, but the least good was vanilla. And the best best one was a chocolate macaron.
I need to know which way round you did this. Did you just have some macarons in the fridge and you were like, I think these might go with it? Or did you try the whiskey and then go,
no, it was
macarons? And you went down to...
It was a nightmare. I couldn't find any macarons, and I was running around like London looking like a right idiot, being like, I can't believe Waitrose didn't have any. I mean, like, what do you live in Dulwich for if I can't find macarons? Like, come on.
That is the height of gentrification, isn't it?
There
are no macarons at Tesco Express. We do, yeah. Anyway, that does sound wonderful. Yeah, exactly. I went to Tesco's looking for manchego and macarons, and they didn't have any. For God's sake. Anyway, that does sound like a wonderful science experiment you did there. Jess. So moving on, we're going to actually one of my favourite distilleries, I have to say, and one of my favourite just general portfolios. But for anyone who hasn't tried Glengoyne, it's based in the Highlands and notoriously is unhurried since 1833. So extremely slow distillation rates with really long fermentations, which gives Glengoyne this kind of wonderfully sweet, fruity and estery new make spirit. Glengoyne, I hate the word. Well, I don't hate the word, but it's one of those words that can get often overused, but smooth. But Glengoyne is always just a really wonderful sitting dram. It's lovely. It just always goes down really nicely. No peak whatsoever. If I'm in the mood for something like that, Glengoyne absolutely ticks all of those kind of boxes. This one, like I said to you earlier, I think we had the Legacy Chapter 1 a very long time ago, probably during COVID.
I want to find out.
But this is from a series that they're releasing, and this is Chapter 3 in the series. And this is celebrating their original excise manager, Sir Arthur John Tedler, who, whilst living on the site, it was his role to keep an eye for any illicit whiskey that was leaving the warehouse, but also being super influential in defining what we know as Scotch whisky today. So some of those rules that we were talking about earlier about all sorts of different things. So this is kind of their homage to Sir Arthur John Tedler. Now, all that we've really got about this is that it's a single malt that's been matured from a selection of ex-sherry casks chosen from the warehouse. Glengoyne often works with sherry, so there must be many casks there that they could have chosen from. And have you tried this one, by the way? Any science experiments with does this go with macarons or? No,
I think this might be the first Glengoyne that I've had in my hands, but I'm saving this one as well.
Yeah. But you should let us know if you are trying along with this one. I mean, I have actually poured this one for myself, but it's just classically Glengoyne. It is just super, super, super smooth. Hate to say that, but it's lovely fudgy notes, kind of. There is an orangey note as well. They're very honeyed, very floral as well, and really, really lovely. I'm going to sit with that one for a while. As I often do. Green Tea is Green is saying to try Waitrose for Manchego. So
not for macarons.
But they didn't have macarons.
Don't trust them.
And Daniel Markland is saying Glengoyne jam toast on the nose.
Love that note.
Not burnt jam toast for me, just a lovely, well-made jam toast. Simon's saving these two for another evening. Again, that is why it's up to you guys. Please don't just drink them.
5 is a lot.
This 5 is a lot of drams to drink within an hour, so you can definitely sit with this. I'm going to be sitting with this one after this tasting session. So that was our tasting. Thank you for joining. Now I'm joking. I'll just invite Rob back onto the screen, who has been patiently waiting. Just like suddenly, no, I'm back on. How's it going?
Good. I've just been chilling out, listening to you guys, so can't complain.
You poor thing.
Taking notes. I'm sure I can rock that for my presentation.
I'm gonna just obviously for any of our regular listeners, you're not on the radio, subscribers, you will know that we often ask that horrific question, asking you guys what has been your favorite from tonight's box. So now Janice is gone, you don't need to feel guilty about.
I'll leave if you don't say Teeling. I'm gone.
Exactly. Yeah, please let us know what one you've enjoyed the most from tonight's box. And yeah, Rob, a similar kind of question to you as what I was asking about Janice, about just the future of Irish whiskey and where it's going. Should it stick to this kind of? I mean, Teeling have experimented a lot, but it's. Is this clear and distinctive style that needs to be kind of really honed in on, or is there really room for it to really grow and change and, become experimental?
Of course, yeah, of course. Like one of the most common questions I get asked as I go around the place is, what's the difference between Irish and Scotch? And we can go into the minuscule kind of productional differences and triple distillation between the both and that. But the easiest answer is single pot still. And yeah, it's going to take a few decades, in all honesty, but hopefully one day we'll see single pot still as diverse as the single malt category. And maybe we'll start to see, geographical differences, but this is the exciting time, is we're one step in a long journey. And the same can be said for single grain whiskies. Let's start to see, look at American whiskies. Single grain whiskies probably have more in common with American whiskies than they do single malt, and they're very underutilized over here. So we can start to see single grain and Scottish rye whiskies and things like that. So yeah, I think, look, there's so much room for experimentation. I think we're looking at less kind of, it's hard to say, but I think we're looking at a little bit more diversification in terms of SKUs from brands. People start to venture out of their comfort zone and challenge themselves in what they create. Obviously, it's our wheelhouse for Teeling, so I'd like to say that we see a lot of that, and I'm sure some people disagree. But look at Wee Beastie from Ardbeg, things like that, like venturing away from what they're known for and trying to be experimentative is exciting.
I think it can vary by the distillery and the brands. I think of something like Aberlour, just for example, is a Scottish, and I just feel like Aberlour is such a kind of, is what it is, and it just does it so well, and it very rarely experiments with weird cask finishes. But something like Teeling is so interesting. Do you know what I mean? It's just different, and I think not everyone has to do the same thing. Not everyone has to experiment. Not everybody has to kind of stick to what their core thing is. I think it's important that everyone kind of sticks to but then can experiment at the same time. But there's some drams, for example, like Aberlour, and I just think that's what they do, and it's good sherried kind of Speyside whiskey,
Yeah, you're dead on. Look at like any other category, wines. You've got your new world and your old worlds, or beer. Craft beer came and exploded on the scene, but nothing's changing Bud or Coors or Corona or things like that.
Yeah. I'm also interested to know if you've got a favourite in that Teeling lineup you've got behind you.
Yeah, that's a good one. Look at his face. He's like, "Why have you asked me this?"
How do you?
My children.
Yeah, exactly. How do you pick a favourite child? I mean,
easily.
Easily. You obviously don't have kids.
You only got one, Andy.
I've got one. That's
there you go.
The specific reason I won't have two, because I just won't ever be able to choose. That's the obvious reason. Other than two sounds horrific. But anyway, Jess, do you want to read out some of the favourites?
The favourites, yeah. I mean, Redbreast is taking in a few votes, I have to say. Stevie G, he's got a Redbreast bottle. They've got a Redbreast bottle arriving tomorrow. TSCD, difficult choice tonight. Redbreast just takes it. Green Tea's Green Redbreast by a hair's breadth. And Richard Ringrove, tough between the Teeling and the Redbreast, but it's the Teeling for them. Mike, Redbreast is the favourite of the evening, but I'd love to experiment with some cocktails with the Teeling. So there we go, daiquiris for Mike. Anthony Mullins has thrown in a curveball because he thinks the Singleton and Redbreast are neck and neck.
There you go.
So thrilled that you tried the Singleton, Anthony. And Daniel Markland has voted for Powers, and Malcolm Tucker just can't choose.
I have to choose. Yes, you do. Malcolm, I think you've been with us for long enough to know that you do have to choose. David Woolcock is saying, I don't know why I keep struggling with that surname. I keep thinking it's going to be Woollock, but then it's Woolcock. So sorry, David.
The C looks like an O. It's all
Redbreast for me. From the Irish, and Glengoyne from the Scots. Drams is saying, love the Redbreast, but Teeling gets it. Malcolm Tucker, it's been hard to choose tonight, but when push comes to shove, and it really will, Malcolm, it really will push comes to shove, it will be the Redbreast. So I feel like we've had a nice mix
on Teeling fighting out in the ring.
Love for Teeling. I do think Redbreast, maybe by a hair's breadth, had the most votes there. But I think, as always with whiskey, there is no right or wrong answer. We all have different tastes, and that's what's so beautiful about it, and that's why we love talking about it. So
very wholesome,
very wholesome, very profound. Wholesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All I get from that is we need to submit a pot still for our next one.
Okay, there you go. So this is good for you. This is good. You can cover as market research, isn't it?
Learn, yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much for all of you tuning in tonight. We will see you on the
6th of April. right before the bank holiday weekend, so it's going to be fun.
Okay, yeah, there's loads of bank holidays coming up. But yeah, so an Easter extravaganza. We have eggs for everybody. No
Eggs.
eggs for Easter for everyone in their boxes. No, okay, you know,
Oh,
set
Andy,
it up.
don't
You're
start
gonna
false promises.
Giving yourself more work.
I'm joking. There's going to be no eggs for anybody, just whiskey. It's much better. So thank you very much to our guests. Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Robert, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Jess,
Thank
as
you.
always, and we will see you on the 6th.
Yes.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.